The holiday season is fast approaching and the time for sales is just around the corner. If you've clicked on this video, that probably means you have a friend or family member who's an FPV pilot and you have absolutely no idea what to get for them this year. Well, you've clicked on the right video, my friend. Today we're going to cover 25 gift ideas for FPV pilots that won't break the bank, and maybe a couple that will. I'm a professional drone pilot and all of these products are ones that I either currently use or would consider purchasing. And of course, everything's going to be linked below for convenience sake. Now, before you purchase any of these gifts, I do highly suggest you do some snooping just to make sure they don't already own the product. Now, we have a ton of gifts to cover today, so let's get right into it. This first group of gifts is for pilots who are already in the hobby. If you've spent time with pilots, you know we always have a pile of batteries in various levels of charge. Many times, a pile of charged batteries gets mixed in with a pile of discharged batteries. That's where this little guy comes in. The first gift idea is this Lipo battery checker. This battery checker is cheap but so useful for quickly checking the charge level of a Lipo. It's small enough to throw in a pocket and a must-have for every pilot. One of the reasons this hobby is so fun is that we get to record our flights to show to people. Almost every device we record onto uses one of these micro SD cards. From the drones, to the goggles, to the GoPros. As you can tell, these guys are tiny, so they are easy to lose. It's a great idea to have a bunch of them. The next gift idea is micro SD cards. SD cards and micro SD cards have a ton of confusing labeling and specifications. So down below I've linked to one specific card. This one card is reliable, it has a ton of space, and it'll work with every system your pilot uses. Did I mention those micro SD cards are easy to lose? If you're giving your pilot a ton of cards, you might as well give them a storage system too. This is a memory card case. The inside has slots for 12 micro SD cards, and it can even fit SD cards for larger cameras. There are a ton of different types of cases, and you probably won't go wrong with any of them. However, I use this rugged case in particular because it's weatherproof and durable. This one never leaves my camera pack. If you know anything about FPV drones, you know we crash constantly. One of the negatives of crashing so often is accidentally breaking our expensive action cameras. Now, action cameras are built to be durable, but they can only take so much. That's why the next gift is screen protectors for an action camera. If your pilot has a GoPro, these are sized almost universally. If it fits a GoPro Hero 9, it'll also fit a 10, an 11, a 12, and a 13. You can tell which GoPro your pilot has by checking the number on the side here. Screen protectors are super cheap and offer just a little peace of mind that the next crash won't be fatal to the action camera. On that note, crashing also affects the ND filters on our action cameras. Unlike screen protectors, these are much more expensive. A crash will regularly shatter the ND filters, rendering them useless. Since I fly drones for work, I use the best filters I can get my hands on, these Polar Pro ND filters. However, Camera Butter and K&F filters also make some good filters that aren't quite so expensive. Most pilots would be happy with a spare set of ND filters. This next gift is one I love so much, it never leaves my bag. That is the Race Day Quads Toolkit version 2. At this point, I've built and repaired a ton of drones, and I've used this toolkit for every single build. In fact, you can see this exact toolkit in most of my build videos. It comes with just about everything you need to repair a drone, and I probably went a whole year before I added anything to it. It looks like Race Day Quads is actually out of stock of this toolkit, but they've assured me it's going to be restocked before Christmas, so keep a close eye out for it. I love this toolkit so much that I added it to the list, even though I don't have an affiliate link for it. You won't go wrong with this one. While the toolkit definitely deserves a space in every pilot's bag, this next gift definitely deserves a space in every pilot's pocket. That's the handy dandy prop tool. This little guy has a one-way socket on each end for tightening and loosening the nut we use to hold our props on. It also has 2 hex drivers in the most common sizes for tightening bolts that come loose during flight. 90% of all repairs in the field can be done with this tiny prop tool, which makes it a required addition to every pilot's toolkit. Plus, it's the perfect size for stocking stuffer. Just saying. Stepping away from tools for a little bit, we get to our first gift that isn't for everyone. If the pilot in your life flies tiny drones like these, then a great gift for them is race gates. Gates are basically just portable obstacles that pilots set up to make a course. While professional outdoor gates are sturdy and well built, rain and snow can keep a pilot from being able to fly outside in the winter. Some people will make their own gates out of a variety of objects like PVC pipes and hula hoops, but pre-made gates are designed to be lightweight, transportable, and easy to see. With a snowy and wet winter around the corner, a freestanding gate is a great way for the FPV pilot in your life to keep their skills sharp. The pilot in your life likely already has a battery charger. Unfortunately, there are a ton of terrible chargers out there. Some can only charge certain types of batteries, while others only allow you to charge one at a time. If you've heard your friend or family member complaining about their battery charger, then you should heavily consider buying the D6 Duo Pro. This style of charger is manufactured under a variety of names, but pretty much any of them will work fine. While this is one of the pricier gifts we've covered so far, it is worth every single penny. This bad boy will easily charge most batteries pilots use and up to a whopping 15 amps. I know that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but trust me, that's a lot. The pilot in your life will love this battery charger. I went for a long time without this next product. In fact, I've flown traditional drones much longer than FPV drones, and I still hadn't used one. Once I finally got one, I could not believe how I functioned so long without it. The next gift you should consider is a Launchpad. There are a variety of types of Launchpads, but the goal is the same: to protect the drone from dirt and debris on the ground. Small folding pads are cheap and can do a decent job in many cases. However, they are prone to getting blown around by prop wash. In the industry, we use these weighted launch pads made by Hoodman. The weights have a dual purpose of keeping the pads in place and also pushing down any vegetation to make a flat landing spot. They certainly are expensive, but they are the industry standard for a reason. As pilots, we often struggle with running out of batteries. We want to spend an entire day in one location, but we don't have the dozens of batteries that would require. That's where this next gift idea comes in: a battery bank. Lipo batteries are great gifts to give, however pilots use very specific ones. While the differences are easy for us to see, to non-pilots it can be really confusing whether they're getting the correct ones. A battery bank partially solves that issue. It allows you to give your pilot a way to recharge their batteries from anywhere with no external power. Because of that, they can make a couple batteries last a long time just by recharging after a flight. There are dozens of brands, but Jackery is definitely one of the more common ones. I'd suggest getting something around 1,000 watts of power. Next up, if your loved one carries all their gear in a bag like I used to do for so many years, then it's finally time to get them a backpack. Now, there are a ton of backpack brands. I personally use this PGY Tech 1Mo FPV backpack, mostly because I bought it used from a friend. However, I really enjoy the way it folds open. It has a fair bit of space inside for all the bits and pieces, and it comes with a ton of dividers so you can organize it like you want. Another popular FPV backpack is the Torval Quad Pit Stop in the larger Pro version. These backpacks are super common, and if I didn't already own the PGY Tech 1Mo, I'd probably be looking at this one. Okay, and that is all the gifts for the standard drone pilots. Next up, the gifts for the super nerds like me that like to build their own drones. You know your loved ones like to build drones when their desk constantly looks like it'll get them on a government watch list. If it's covered in wire, solder, electrical chips, and funky smelling smoke, this is the section for you. I can hear some of you now. Daniel, this looks like an entirely different day. Well, that's such a strange thing to say. I don't know where you would get that impression. First up for this section is the highly recommended TS101 soldering iron. Now, I don't personally own this one myself, but its reputation definitely precedes it. This little guy is a portable iron that is great for throwing in a bag. It can run using wall power or when connected to a Lipo battery, which makes it a fantastic option for bringing to the field. Not only is it great for throwing in a bag, but it also works well as an everyday soldering iron. In fact, many people use this as their only soldering iron. So if your pilot is constantly complaining about the quality of their soldering iron, definitely look into one of these. Iron. Boy, that comes out so country. The next gift idea is a practice soldering board. Now, the electronics in our drones are very expensive, and if we mess up while soldering, it could be hundreds of dollars down the drain. One of the ways we avoid destroying our drone builds is by using practice soldering boards. These boards allow us to try out different soldering techniques without actually putting our electronics at risk. In fact, some expensive stacks come with their own practice soldering board. However, most stacks don't. This gift is definitely suited towards pilots that are newer to building drones. However, it's so cheap that it's a no-brainer. Something tiny that made a huge change in my drone building workflow is this set of micro tip tweezers by Lumenier. Most tweezers come with flat or rounded tips, which makes it hard to manipulate small wires and objects. These tweezers, however, come to a very fine point, which makes them ideal for navigating small spaces. They're easy to hold and have holes that are great for grip. What more can I say? These are good quality tweezers. This next item is another one that's on my list, I just haven't ordered yet. That gift idea is an electric screwdriver. Every drone build means installing dozens of little bolts. While a manual hex driver can certainly get this done, every drone builder secretly wants an electric screwdriver. The idea of effortlessly fastening 50 bolts with relative ease puts a warm feeling in our heart, but not so warm that we actually go out and buy the thing. There's a couple different options for these. There's the cheaper option that will do okay and last for a little while, and then there's the expensive version that works amazingly. You do, however, have to buy hex bits for both of these separately. I suppose it comes down to whether or not the pilot in your life is on the nice list or the naughty list. Every part of building a drone is finicky. We're often dealing with tiny wires, tiny electronics, and tiny spaces. That often means we're straining to see what we're soldering or just having difficulty keeping a small piece in place. This next gift solves that problem by grabbing pieces and holding them in place. That gift is a helping hands tool, also called a third hand.
Looks like we got competition.
There are of course a ton of different types of helping hands, but this one in particular is designed by an FPV company specifically for soldering FPV components. This version not only has the helping hands, but it also has a light, a magnifying glass, and even a fan to blow away solder smoke. This gift is definitely a great choice for anyone that builds drones. This next item is one I've had for many years across a variety of hobbies. However, it wasn't until FPV that I realized how valuable it truly is. This next gift is a magnetic dish. While building drones, we deal with dozens of tiny bolts. They come in small Ziploc bags to keep them together, but it's often hard to find a specific sized bolt. That's where this dish comes in. When building drones, I put all of the bolts into these trays. This makes it easier to find specific ones, and it also holds them tightly in case I bump the dish. Nothing is worse than spilling dozens of tiny bolts everywhere. In fact, right now I even have some spare bolts from my previous build in this dish. These dishes are cheap and a no-brainer for the drone builder in your life. If your loved ones like me, they work on a slick wooden desk. I love the size of it, but small parts are prone to rolling around. That's why the next gift is a silicone work surface. For the longest time, I've used a silicone baking mat for builds. It's cheap and it works well enough for my needs. However, while researching for this video, I discovered these silicone mats made specifically for FPV. These are not only grippy, but they have compartments to hold items in place. I haven't used these particular ones, but you can bet I'll be adding it to my list this year. This next gift is for very specific pilots, but definitely one they'll be thankful for. That gift is a DJI O3 Air Unit. This is one of the first really specific gifts on this list that isn't appropriate for everyone. If the pilot in your life has DJI branded goggles like this, or like this, they can use this item. However, if they're constantly talking trash about DJI, you may want to skip this one. I know this one is a gamble, but most pilots would be thrilled to get one of these. Besides, retailers like Get FPV are great with returns. And that's all the gifts for the drone builders. So the final type of person is someone who knows they want to get into FPV, but they haven't actually purchased anything yet. It's important to consider for this section that the future pilot may have some products in mind already. There are a ton of brands out there, and which system a pilot goes with is entirely personal choice. If you can, try and find out which products they're already looking at. However, if a person wants to get into FPV and has no idea where to start, this section will help you make it the best Christmas ever. The ultimate gift for an aspiring FPV pilot is a drone. However, there are so many drone types out there, and for a non-pilot, it can be incredibly confusing. Most manufacturers have gotten around this by offering kits for sale for beginners. These kits are usually much cheaper and are meant to be a first stepping stone into flying FPV. The Emax Easy Pilot is a good example of this. This $100 kit will get them up in the air and flying, but they'll also quickly outgrow it. For a bit more, you can get the newer Beta FPV Aquila 16 kit. At around $250, you'll get a bit more function, but your loved one will still outgrow it eventually. Both of these kits come with everything a potential pilot needs to get up in the air and flying, and it's a good way of dipping their toes into the water to see if they even like it. The ultimate FPV kit would be the DJI Avata 2 Fly More combo at $1,200. This drone is a great intro into FPV and can be used for a long time. In fact, I use mine regularly to make money as a professional drone pilot. And if the pilot in your life hasn't been that nice, maybe consider this $20 drone. It's actually surprisingly fun for a couple hours. If you aren't familiar with the FPV hobby, we use games called simulators to practice flying on computers before ever putting a drone at risk. Flying an FPV drone is incredibly difficult, even for someone who is very experienced with a traditional camera drone. If your loved one is considering getting into FPV, then a simulator is a great and required place to start. There are many drone simulators, but the most popular ones are Velocidrone, Liftoff, Uncrashed, Trip, and FPV Logic. With the exception of Velocidrone, all of these simulators are available for download on Steam, a virtual marketplace for gaming. Which simulator a person picks is definitely personal choice, which makes a Steam gift card a great option. You can purchase these online, but you can also find physical copies in many retailers like Walmart and Target. $20 is enough for the majority of simulators. However, and this is important, you can't use a simulator without this next item. Simulators and drones are controlled by radios. There's a lot of personal choice that goes into radio selection. However, Radio Master radios are definitely king, and price is usually a good indicator of quality. I'm a big fan of the Radio Master Boxer, and I often recommend this one. Some other great options are the Radio Master Pocket and the Radio Master TX16S. Buying a radio is definitely a good choice for a gift, but you should also ask them which one they want. Another great gift idea is a set of goggles. However, if you thought there were a lot of radio choices, wait until you see how many goggle choices there are. There are a ton of different types of goggle systems, and they don't all work interchangeably. I usually recommend the DJI Goggles 3 or Goggles 2 since they are some of the best on the market. Again, you should ask your loved one which ones they want. If the person you're shopping for is interested in FPV drones, then they're probably also interested in filming their flights. I personally use GoPros for my action cameras, although I've had my eye on the DJI Action 5 for a while now. The newest GoPro is the Hero 13, but the 12 and 11 are still great choices. In fact, I use a GoPro Hero 11 to this day. It's always a great idea for a FPV pilot to have a backup action camera. And that wraps up the list of gifts for FPV pilots. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll address as many as I can. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.